One question we see crop up frequently in relation to the various Anderson series, although not quite as often as "what does FAB mean," is why are there so many different episode orders out there for each show?
Well, if you're looking for an explanation, I don't know.
Most of the Anderson shows were produced in an era where it was common practice for episodic television drama series, i.e. those without any continuing storyline, to be shown in a seemingly random order, where it often didn't matter what order the episodes appeared in as long as the introductory episode aired first.
I did say it was a rough schedule, sir.
This seemingly random approach to broadcasting wasn't just common practice in the UK, with both homegrown and imported shows, but in global television markets all around the world for decades.
How do the scientists explain that, sir?
They can't.
There are several reasons for this, although, as you're about to see, they don't always make too much sense.
Okay, let's go.
Throughout the 1960s and 70s, the order the episodes of each series were shown in often varied between countries and regions, but the main alternative to the original production order was the original UK broadcast order, from either the ATV Midlands or ATV London regions, which usually broadcast the episodes in quite a different order from that in which they were originally made.
But why? I still don't understand why.
The reason for the creation of this order is unclear, although one commonly held belief is that these orders were devised on the basis that the quality of the shows improved over the course of production, and thus it made sense to bring some later, better episodes to the front of the run in order to hook viewers, while burying earlier, weaker episodes near the end.
Well, I suppose it makes some sort of sense.
Generally, this would not impact too heavily on the limited continuity of most Anderson shows, with the notable exception of Stingray's Plant of Doom, which follows on from the events of the first episode,
My slave Marina has escaped.
being listed as episode 34.
I don't see how.
But it is particularly noticeable in the case of UFO,
Oh no.
where many of the later produced Pinewood Studios episodes were brought forward to air before some of those shot at MGM Borehamwood, resulting in hairstyles, costumes, and even main characters varying from week to week.
Interesting.
Beyond the ITC era, a similar rule may also have been applied to other Anderson shows, with several early episodes of Terrorhawks appearing near the end of the initial UK broadcast run, including the episode The Sporilla.
Dear sister, do you remember the frightening Sporilla? Oh, yes.
Which was aired after it had already been featured in the clip show episode Mars Monsters.
Well, that's the way the cookie cake crumbles.
Just occasionally, episodes were produced in an order that would make a mess of the show's continuity if they were to be broadcast that way.
Right, you've all had time to consider.
For instance, Dangerous Rendezvous, the third installment of Captain Scarlet's loosely themed Lunarville trilogy, was actually recorded before the second, Crater 101, but for obvious reasons, Dangerous Rendezvous always appears after Crater 101 on repeats and home video releases, despite being made first.
There's very little more that we can do.
Similarly, the UFO episode Exposed, that first introduces the character of Paul Foster, was actually the second episode that Michael Billington worked on.
So you had the whole thing wrapped up from the start.
His first was Survival, but it was felt that his sudden addition to the show needed to be explained, and thus Exposed was written to be his introduction.
That really is a very good story, Mr. Foster.
Since Foster became such an important character on the show, Exposed has traditionally been shown as the second episode in most repeat runs to enable the rest of the series to be shown in whatever order the broadcaster chooses.
Yeah, it's gonna work out just fine.
In 1998, the BBC aired Earthbound as the second episode of Space 1999, acknowledging the departure of Commissioner Simmons, who had previously appeared in Breakaway.
Well done.
Production orders have still occasionally caused problems on broadcasts when channels haven't paid attention to what they're actually airing, most notably when New Captain Scarlet abandoned production on House of Dolls, originally intended as the 25th and penultimate episode of the show. Episode 26, the series finale Dominion, entered production instead while a replacement episode 25, Grey Skulls, was being written. Yet when ITV first aired the series in the UK, and later when they released it on DVD, they stuck strictly to production order in the case of these two episodes, thus Grey Skulls erroneously followed Dominion.
Oh, great.
This is where we came in.
Occasionally, episodes would be delayed or rescheduled if their content was deemed unsuitable for transmission.
Here,
Try a couple.
2 episodes of UFO, The Responsibility Seat and The Long Sleep, were held back in all but one region on the show's initial UK broadcast, and were only finally premiered in late-night slots at the end of subsequent repeat runs.
You earned it. The hard way.
Similarly, when Space Precinct appeared on BBC Two in 1995, the channel made extensive cuts to multiple episodes to make them suitable for the show's 6 PM transmission slot.
They used to make those things with less violence.
And even demanded a scene from the 11th episode, Illegal, be reshot entirely.
We gotta find a way to cut the power.
We need something to short it out. Hold it, Haldane. You'll fry. Here, use some insulation.
Don't tell me.
It's polytrilene, zero conductivity.
How do you know that?
It says so on the label.
We gotta find a way to cut the power. It's hot.
Here, take this. It's polytrilene, heatproof.
How do you know that?
I read the label.
Which might explain why Illegal finally appeared on the BBC as episode 22.
Well, as one would say, lovely.
We apologize for the loss of your picture.
Any program can be pulled from transmission if its broadcast is deemed to be insensitive in light of current world events.
We're heading for trouble. And I mean trouble.
Brink of Disaster and The Perils of Penelope were delayed to the very end of BBC Two's 2000-2001 repeat run of Thunderbirds following the Hatfield train crash on October 17, 2000, replaced by Attack of the Alligators and Path of Destruction respectively.
So relax, Doctor.
Relax. With 3 giant alligators knocking the house down? Be fair, McGill.
Almost a year later, following the New York terror attacks of September 11, 2001, Captain Scarlet, which had begun a BBC Two repeat run the previous day, was one of many shows delayed for several weeks, and the run resumed a fortnight later with Manhunt.
It's great to be back.
With Big Ben Strikes Again airing 8th and Winged Assassin airing 13th in this particular run.
We'll have to bear with it.
In a similar but happier example of real life affecting broadcast order, more than one Anderson episode has been pressed into service as a last-minute replacement for a postponed sports event, and Christmas episodes of various shows have often been moved around in the running order to be shown nearer the big day itself.
Happy Christmas, everyone! Happy Christmas!
Even into the 1980s, episode orders varied wildly from region to region in repeat runs across the UK, and it's likely the same occurred in other countries too.
Do you know what these orders tell us to hit?
Surprise me.
As fans, we hold the shows in high regard and know exactly which episode order makes sense, with most preferring the original production order. But to many broadcasters, these shows were just filler, and may sometimes have been aired or released in a seemingly random order simply because that's just what happened to be available.
Okay, Dr. Beaker. I'll go and lace up the projector.
In a pre-digital era, it may even have been that certain stations aired shows in whatever order the massive pile of tapes and film cans had arrived in, and so long as episode 1 went out first, it didn't really matter what order the rest appeared in.
I am rushing the film to you now.
Sometimes even finding episode 1 might be a problem, hence Breakaway airing as episode 14 during a 1977 LWT repeat run of Space 1999.
It's beginning to look like a stumble in the dark.
When it came to home video releases, things could be similarly haphazard, but the continuation of volume-by-volume VHS releases was often subject to how well the last tape had sold, and so it only made sense to release the best episodes from a series first in order to ensure future releases.
Why not? Should work.
In the UK and several other territories, the episodes used to create the Super Space Theatre compilation films of the 1980s were then unavailable in their original uncut format for many years, unless they happened to show up on television. So the films, which often used the first episode of a particular show, would be released on the initial volumes and then be followed up by the remaining episodes.
It's all beginning to fit.
Occasionally, some puzzling exceptions still cropped up, such as when ITC Home Video released the first season of Space 1999 in almost the reverse of production order. Were they just working backwards through the pile of tapes?
I just don't know.
With the advent of the DVD and Blu-ray era, most repeats and home media releases now generally adhere to either the original production order or the ITC recommended order, although as we have seen, these two can still change on occasion.
I think we got a few more surprises for you.
Forces TV's initial run of UFO in 2017 came in yet another totally random order before falling into a more familiar sequence for later repeats, proving that even today there's nothing to stop a channel from airing these shows in whatever order they want.
I gave you an order! That order is countermanded.
Luckily for us, almost every Gerry Anderson production currently in existence is available for us to buy to enjoy in whatever order we want.
That's great news.
Which makes it rather fun to look back on previous broadcast orders, if only to ask the question, what were they thinking?
Take them away, Sam. Bunch of amateurs.